We are returning to our Arrow series where we're talking about the family. We're focusing in on these all-important relationships inside the home. We've said that we want to learn to live towards the target. In the first two installments of the series, I've talked to you about the subject of aim. What are we aiming for? And number two, second installment, I talked about release. The release, that the whole thing, the whole point, it's all moving towards this point of release, and we don't wait till we get there to think about it. We're working towards that from the very get-go. We want to have that in mind the whole time. Well, this weekend, I want to talk to you about rhythm. The second R stands for rhythm. Rhythm is a strong, regularly occurring sequence of events, actions, movements, or sounds. See also what most white people have no sense of. Rhythm. A strong, regularly recurring. People are like, can Christians dance? It's like, well, put music on. We'll find out real quick if you can or if you can't. That's a funny joke. You'll laugh on the way home. A strong, regularly recurring sequence of events, actions, movements, or sounds. That's rhythm. I'm calling this message, Set the Pace. Set the pace. That's our job, Mom. That's our job, Dad. Those of us single, to set the pace and to live towards the pace that God's going to call us to when we begin a family. You see, the truth is there is a God-ordained rhythm that he wants us to set our lives to. There's a built-in beat, I guess you could say. There's a cadence. There's an ebb and flow to how God wants our lives to go. God's not the God of chaos, not the God of confusion. He's a God of order. And that's how he's built the world, and that's how he wants us to function in our daily lives. Now, we've based this series off of Psalm 127, verse 2. We've said that's our base camp. We're moving around to get the clarity that comes from a wide selection of scriptures, but we've made Psalm 127 our launching out point. So if you would, join me there in your Bible or your mobile device. We will have the verses on the screen for you. But we have seen already a lot. We've seen that kids are arrows. That came from Psalm 127. We've learned that we're meant to be archers and that we see ourselves as warriors because arrows are weapons and this is war. And we have learned that in all we do as parents, if we try to do it on our own strength or by ourselves, we will fail inevitably, miserably. Because if the Lord doesn't build the house, the builders build in vain. What are you building in your home? If God's not at the center of it, if God's not the one driving, if God's not the one calling the shots, then I'm sorry. The Bible says you're building in vain. That's not what we want to be doing, right? We want our building to last. We want our building, we want to move towards a legacy. We want impact. That's what we want. If the Lord doesn't guard the city, the watchmen stay awake in vain. In verse 2, what we're going to find out is that rhythm is an essential component to what happens in our homes. Let's look at it together. It is vain. Everyone say vain. Not like I wear my sunglasses at night. That's a different problem. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows. For so he gives his beloved sleep. Wonderful little verse. What he's saying is there's a natural, built-in rhythm to life that you fight against at your own peril. To teach us this, he says, hey, getting up early, that's cool. Some little arrows are early birds, right? Some people are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning. Some people spring out of bed, greeting their alarm clock with a kiss, and they don't even need any coffee to be human, right? These are the people we don't understand. The only reason I get out of bed is so I can make coffee. I'm just like, coffee. If you ever talk to me before there's coffee involved in my life, it's a mistake. Right? It's like my eyes are a little bit slitty. Like, oh, Where's that coffee at? I know it's here somewhere. Some little arrows are little early birds. Other little arrows are night owls. He says in this text that some people sit up late. Some people, they consider getting out of bed anytime before 10 early, and they come alive at midnight. Right? They're like, oh my God, everything's good now. It's midnight. I'll create something. I'll go and write something. It's night. You're going to go to sleep? No, there's things to do now. Sit up late. Right? We got some early birds in the house. Every location, play along. Early birds? Okay, hands down. How about some night owls? Come on. I am a night. Okay. I feel like I'm a little bit ambidextrous. I feel like I flip back and forth. I'm never pleasant early in the morning, but I do, and I maybe have fought to make myself more of an early bird because I feel like so much you can gain from just harnessing those hours. Like when you get up early, even though it sucks, like, and you just do it and like chug the coffee, then you're like, okay, I'm awake. I can do something now. I mean, there's something real satisfying about like hitting 11 a.m. and like having already like knocked out like 5 hours of work. Like, it's horrible, but there's something really cool about it. And but if I don't rein myself in, I am one of those like, 2 a.m. Netflix guys going, what have I just done with my life? I got to be up in 4 hours. Anybody else? A 2 a.m. Netflix, what have I just done with my life guy? Okay, whatever. A few friends here, gangsters for life, by the way. Now, it's not good or bad to be an early bird or to be a night owl, because we learned in the first installment that every arrow is different, and that's cool. You should never try and pressure someone to be something that they're not. If they're not an early bird and you are, like, it's easy to think that someone's doing it wrong just because they don't do it how you do it. But we got to give each other the grace to be different. Right? When God created the world, he needed to make animals. He wasn't all like, I'll just make 1,000,000 buffalo. That would have been so boring. And buffalo are really weird. He made all sorts of different kind of animals, and he made all sorts of different kind of people as well. What this text is trying to say is not getting up early is bad or staying up late is bad. It's trying to say that when you get up early and stay up late, that's bad. Or as the text puts it, if you do that, you'll eat the bread of sorrows. Whatever kind of bread that is, it's not good. I guess you could translate it this way. Get up really early and stay up really late every night, and you'll mess yourself up. Now, that's true medically. There are a raft of medical conditions that are triggered by not getting adequate rest. Everything from decreased memory. What was that? I'm so tired, I can't remember that. Weight gain. I didn't sleep well. That's your skin aging prematurely. Forgetfulness. I already said that. I forgot. It really is in my notes twice, though. I'll have to do something about that one day. Lack of sex drive. Someone's like, okay, I'm going to bed now. I've heard enough. And heart disease. Okay, so it gets more serious towards the end. And none of these things would be examples of how God wants you to live, agreed? And none of these would be things that we would want to live. So what the Bible is saying is, hey man, pick a team. Be an early bird or be a night owl. Don't be an early owl or a night bird. That's not good. Because if you live that way, you're rejecting a gift God knows you need, and you're fighting against the rules of the universe. Because the universally ordained rule of how things are meant to function is, by and large, as a rule, because we're talking general now, there are going to be exceptions. If you live where you're lighting the candle at both ends, you're going to have less candle to work with and old skin too soon. That's what the Bible's saying. This is just one small expression, though, of a larger intention, and that is that there's a rhythm established in creation that's foolish to try and think you can successfully fight against. Listen to Ecclesiastes 3. To everything, there's a season. Time for every purpose under heaven. Time to be born, time to die. Time to plant, time to pluck what's planted. Time to kill, time to heal, time to break down, time to build up, time to weep, time to laugh, time to mourn, time to dance, time to cast away stones, time to gather stones, time to embrace, hug it out, y'all, and a time to refrain from embracing by Habakkuk. A time to gain, time to lose, time to keep. Do you hear the cadence in it? Do you hear the rhythm in it? Do you hear the beat in it? There's a tempo to it. That's the idea. There's time to throw stuff away. Time to tear, or keep, rather. Dang it. Time to tear, time to sow, time to keep silence. All the Pinterest people just rejoice. There's a time to sow. Time to keep silence. Time to speak. Time to love. Time to hate. Time of war. Time of peace. This is how God built stuff. There's a rhythm to it. There's an ebb. There's a flow. It's how things are meant to go. And within the four walls of your home, you are to find out and discover the beat, the rhythm, the cadence from God that you are to set your clocks and your soul according to. Listen to this passage from 1 Kings chapter 8 in a newer translation. Blessed be God, who has given peace to his people Israel, just as he said he'd do. Not one of all those good and wonderful words that he spoke through Moses has ever misfired. May God, our very own God, continue to be with us, just as he was with our ancestors. May he never give up and walk out on us. May he keep us centered and devoted to him, following the life path he has cleared, watching the signposts, walking at the pace and rhythms he laid down for our ancestors. How beautiful is that? That God laid out signposts. He cleared a path. He has an intended rhythm that he wants you to walk in. And this, by the way, is a custom rhythm. It's not factory. It's not stock. It's not standard. There's no one size fits all. It's not off the rack. It's bespoke. It's custom. It's tailored to you. You ever get frustrated when you go to the store to buy clothes and you painfully realize you are not a medium and you are not a large? You are somewhere between a medium and a large. And you might need long pants and a skinny waist or a larger waist, but they don't come in the shorter size. And it's frustrating when someone try and shove something to fit on you and when it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. And there's a calling on your life. There's a calling on your children's lives. And there's a calling, I believe, on a home. I believe there's callings on churches, on different expressions of the local church, which is why it's such a mistake to try and approach, well, that church isn't doing it right. Now, there's things that clearly we don't depart from. Jesus is Lord. His death pays for sins. He rose from the dead. The only way to be saved is to believe in him. Those things, epic. We want to fight for what's right there. But within what are we specifically more called to? Some churches are gonna really feel like their calling is to go to build orphanages in Sudan, right? And it's easy if you build the churches, orphanages in Sudan type of a church, you're like, well, every church should do that, right? And some churches have a calling on their house to call out a generation of sexual purity, and right? Oh, every church should do that. Well, every church doesn't have a pastor with that calling on his life, you see? And so within your home, okay, now let's make it personal. Within your home, there's a custom call. I can't tell you what that rhythm's going to look like. I can give you guideposts. I can give you signposts. I can give you bigger principles, which is what I'm about to do. I'm doing it right now. But I cannot. You're going to have to figure this out. You have to receive from the Lord a revelation. You have to ask for your eyes to be opened up to what's the calling on your house, in your home, and how do you set the rhythm to match it. That makes sense? Your music's going to be different than mine. And maybe for you, it's rap, and for me, it's country western. Don't judge. I love it. Don't hate on me. I'm just a country boy. And it's imperative. Whoa, just role reversal. For us to dance right, we got to have the right kind of music playing. And so you got to figure out your music. Or you're going to eat the bread of sorrows. But we're supposed to eat the bagels of blessing. That's really good. relatively good. For there to be harmony and for there to be discord in your life, you need to know this. There's a rhythm. Here we go. First bucket, to schedule. There's a rhythm to scheduling. Schedule where you go, what you do, how much you commit to. Let's all feel very empowered now. I want you to repeat this sentence out loud after me. I am in charge of my calendar. Say it. Now say it once more with feeling. Because some of y'all were like, I'm in charge of, you're a freaking idiot. That's how you said it in your heart. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Say it. I am in charge of my calendar. You are. You're not in a prison. You are not in a prison. We can feel like we have no choice. We can feel like, oh, you don't know. You can feel like we're overbooked and we have nothing we can do about it. But if you are overbooked, it's no one's fault but your own. Because nothing gets put on our calendar without it going through us first. You are allowed to say no in life just like you can say yes. Oh, that's a nice idea, Levi. You sit around getting paid to read the Bible. Must be nice. Why so hostile, by the way? What the heck? I live in the real world. My struggle is real. Okay, well, you sound tremendously busy. But let me say this. You have the exact same amount of time allotted to you as every other single person on the planet does. Newsflash, I'm so big. No, I don't have time for it. Ain't nobody got time for it. You have exactly the same amount of time as Abraham Lincoln did per week. Martin Luther King Jr. Thomas stinking discovered electricity, Edison. What's your excuse, right? What you do with what's your time is the issue. If you're a bad manager of yourself, if you're not a good steward of what God gave you, that's a different problem. But we have to all agree that we have all been allotted the same 24 hours a day and 7 days, I said that word, 7 days a week. 7 days 7. Now once more correctly, 7 days a week, as everybody else has. And I belabor that point because I feel like it's so easy for us just to think that our cross is the heaviest, that our cup is the fullest. And we somehow give ourselves permission to do things that are not healthy and not biblical and not wise in the name of, well, my case is different. You're not the exception. No one is. We all are in charge of our own calendars. What we must do is determine what matters most, do it first, and go from there. We have to discover what matters most, do it first, and go from there. Because time is a zero-sum affair. And that means it's a closed system. That means time is the most precious of anything you could think of. Because it's like a pie. Every time you cut into it to serve up a slice to something, what remains becomes smaller that you have to work with when it comes to everything else that you need to do. It's a closed system, a zero-sum affair. And so what you have in what you hold and all the minutes you have is a very precious thing, and you must be very selective in how you allot it out. The same is true with passion, and the same is true with energy. We will never find time for the most important things. We must make time for what matters most, which we have declared, week 1, is seeking God first and his righteousness and his kingdom. And if we seek these things first, everything else gets added to us. The opposite of that is putting everything else first and giving God only what's left. This is tragic, but this is all too common. And this is just a way of life where what we claim matters first is not reflected in our Google Calendar. We claim that we love God. Oh, God first, right? See, Jesus first. And it's like, well, show me your outlook. Show me your calendar. Show me where that's true. Show me in your Apple Cal, iCal thing where that's actually true. Where does God get first place? Where does God get the priority? Where does God get his slice of pie served up to him? We often tragically put God in the leftovers in everything. Time, finances, energy. We give him, if we have anything left, we'll give to God. If we have any time left, we'll do this. And that's why oftentimes we can say it's a priority, but the first thing to get cut when things get busy, the first thing to get, well, we can't go to church. Well, we're busy. We can't go. We can't be in a small group. We're just too busy. Oftentimes, the first thing to not get served up is God's plate is just empty. Well, we put pie on every other plate that we perceive to be so vital. But none of the things in our lives that we're eager to give pie to first to the neglect of God can save our soul. Nothing besides God can put treasure in heaven that waits for us there. Nothing that we can give our finances or our time or our passion to can make us more like Jesus, can help us raise our kids, can help us build an epic, strong, godly marriage that will go the distance. That's why Jesus was like, hey, maybe here's an idea. Put God first, his kingdom, his righteousness. What about everything else in my life? I'm very busy and very overstrapped. Well, approach those things a better version of you for having put God first. Finances, I have found 90% with God's help goes a lot further than 100% on my own. And it's the same as it comes to every other area besides finances. Here's 4 ideas for putting God first. Give God your first moments before your day begins. Psalm 5:3, my voice, God, you shall hear in the morning. O Lord, in the morning, I will direct it to you. And I will look, help me if you know. That was 4 of you. The rest of you can't read. It's a 2-letter word. I will look. Very good. We honor God as the day begins by giving him the first piece of it. Seeking God in his word. David's like, man, I'm not going to rush out running a kingdom. I need time with the Lord. Some would say, I'm so busy, my day's so busy. I would say you're too busy not to seek God first. Not to get his backing, not to help him renew your mind, not to help plant something in your spirit that you're going to need later that day. And I just offended all the night owls. Wait a minute, you just said it's not bad. Now I'm not even a good Christian. Hold on, 1 a.m. is morning too, right? So you could give God your morning, 1 a.m., have a little time, and then go to sleep, and then still go to your day with that being the first thing you did that day. I just helped everybody out. We're all winners in the Lord. Here's the second. Begin each new week by gathering together before we scatter into a world that needs the love of Jesus. Whew, good preaching. Begin each new week by gathering together with God's people, before scattering into a world full of people that need God's love. That's why we begin the new week. A new week begins, we gather on the weekend, and then charge into our Mondays. Here's the third. Small groups are essential to growth in friendships. It's fine to come together and worship him and get into his word in rows of chairs, but it's so much more helpful, I would say, when you take the rows and you digest it in circles. When you don't just hear in a row, that's important, but you hear and then digest it with God's people in a circle. Because in rows, though I want this to be a conversation where you're responding vocally as you eagerly hear God's word, there isn't the appropriate place in this setting for the kind of questions that can happen in a small group. Questions like, are you doing the things that are here, and what's hard about it, and how can I pray for you, and how can I hold you accountable? Would it be helpful if I called you on Wednesday or Friday and asked you, did you do the one thing that you said was the hardest thing from the thing that we heard together? It's not just rows, it's circles. So small groups are vital. If you're not in one, get in one post haste. Number 4, serving. We honor God by serving in the church and in the world. Why? So you don't cultivate a consumer mentality when it comes to Christianity. It's so easy to this is like Starbucks. You know, you come in for you pick me up, you know, and it's just all about you. This is for you. But as you receive it, you should be so intoxicated by it, what God's doing for you, that you want other people to have it and that you want to help that happen. That should be the mentality. Serving so you don't cultivate a consumer mentality when it comes to your Christianity. Of course, work's vital.
You're like, oh, Levi said just have my quiet time and never go to work, so I'll get fired because I put God first. And I'm
an idiot.
I was late for work, so I was reading
Get up early, right? Or stay up late, but go to work, of course. A horse is a horse. What next? How about dinner at home? Dinner at home. Here's your assignment. By and large, as the rule, dinner at home, at the table, TV off, 3 times a week, families. Dinner at home,
that is impossible with my schedule.
Change your schedule. Maybe not this week, maybe when the next time it comes to evaluate what sports you're doing. Will this keep us from being planted in God's house, being in a small group, serving? But I would have to change everything about my life. That's the idea. When you said, I'm going to pick up my cross and follow Jesus. Yeah, I'm telling you, change everything in your whole stinking life if it keeps you from the things that matter the most. But you don't have to. You can live a train wreck of a life if you want. Dinner at home 3 times a week as the rule. There's not only benefit financially. There's studies that back this up. When you eat home 3 times a week or more, you cultivate better spending habits. With the TV off, and you also tend to eat healthier too. So there's a bunch of benefits besides just like being with your family talking about how the day went. All the single people have one tear streaming down just by myself eating dinner 3 times a week. That's my whole life. Okay, families, invite some single people over for dinner too. There's nothing better for them to be around family, seeing how this should work, and they get a free meal. Single people, you didn't even clap me down? What's the matter with you? I know in Bozeman they're going nuts because it's full of single people. All college, they're like, yeah, invite me over, somebody. Ramen noodles suck. Okay. Probably Missoula too. I get the love from the college towns. When your kids are young, family days are so awesome. Family days. We take, as in our family, we take 1 day a week and we have time together. We just do random stuff. We sleep in, we eat bacon to the glory of God, stuff like that. And then from there, of course, you prayerfully choose what extracurricular activities you want to bring into your home safely. You're the gatekeeper. You set the pace, mom and dad. Well, they want to do it. They want to do 7 sports. I'm sorry. That's not how we're going to do it. Problems arise when we let the tail wag the dog. When there's a sporting event every night, when you're driving all over the state, when every bit of attention and passion goes into these things that ultimately will not outlast the only thing that matters. And if you want to send your arrows hurtling towards the target of soccer matters most, then by all means. But if you want the arrows to be pointed at a target that says God's kingdom first, his righteousness matters most, then you orient your home around that. If having tons of money, that's the most important thing, then fine. Then live in such a way, breadwinner, that you're never home, you're never there. But they'll have money, but not you. But if it's more important for you that they have a dad, maybe consider a career change if you are not able to ever be there. And prayerfully, very prayerfully consider what job offers you say yes to before pulling your family out of good soil where the roots go down. You've heard me say before, but it's more money. And I have said before, rehab's expensive, so I hope it's a lot more money. If your kids are thriving in the house of the Lord, to pull them out. So oftentimes the last question asked is, where will we go to church? It's all schools and this and the neighborhoods and the last thing is, and then they get there and they're like, oh my gosh, Fresh Life, they call us, they email us, is there a church exactly like this where I live? No, there's not. Almost anywhere, except, in Missoula, Bozeman, Billings, and, Kalispell and Whitefish. So take a job there, it's fine. But I'm saying prayerfully, make those decisions. Not everything you can do, you should do, and the good is often the enemy of the best. I'm never going to make it through any of this. I'm screwed. Okay, here's the second bucket, discipline. The rhythm of discipline. Discipline is essential in shooting arrows towards the target. Proverbs 13:24. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. Wow. So if you hate your kid, never discipline him. That's what God thinks. Discipline is an act of love. Proverbs 3, let's go to verse 12, if it's 2 slides. The Lord disciplines those he loves. A father disciplines the son he delights in. So the way you show your son you delight in him is to lovingly correct him. Chastening your son while there's hope, Proverbs 19. Do not set your heart on his destruction. The way to destroy a child is to not discipline him correctly. Now that could mean no discipline at all, or ruthless, vengeful, angry discipline. That both of them. So don't discipline your son correctly. You'll destroy him. You'll move him towards destruction. Here's an epiphany I had. Without discipline, kids cannot help but be undisciplined. Now, being undisciplined is what no one wants. Do you want your kid one day to go into a job interview and the future and potential employer be like, this young person seems very undisciplined. Hire them on, and they're like, they don't do anything. They're lazy. They shirk responsibility. They text when they're supposed to be working. They're very undisciplined. Well, here's the deal. If you don't discipline them, you cannot help but raise a child that lacks discipline. Discipline is an unpleasant process towards a desirable outcome. We want what's on the other side of it. It's just going through it that's hard for them and for us. And that's the word, by the way, discipline. We don't punish our kids. Punishment, all of it was taken care of at the cross when Jesus Christ died for the sins of the world. There's no punishment remaining outside the cross. He paid it all. It's discipline that's an aspect of training. Discipline that's a part of the conditioning that's needed to launch them out. And whether they admit it or not, say it or not, children crave boundaries and borders. It makes them feel safe and loved. Your daughter comes out wearing something, you're like, oh no, you're not going out of the house in that. But Dad, but whatever they're saying on this other, my dad cares about me. My mom loves me. And there will come a day where they'll thank you for it. Like when they have a 12-year-old daughter. They need to know the rules of the game, though, and before the game starts. You can't make up rules on the fly. That's not fair. Call things that's a strike. You never told them. You got to tell them ahead of time so they know what the rules of the game are. Those things will evolve certainly, but there needs to be a united front in that, where mom's rules and dad's rules are the same. Can you see the benefit now of a child growing up in a home where their mom and their dad lives in the same home? Because when there's two homes, this is confusing for a kid. Not impossible, God can work, but it's very confusing for a child to have to be like, oh, I'm at mom's house now. What are the rules here? And I'm at dad's house now. What are the rules here again? That's very confusing, though not impossible to overcome. Where there's great weakness, there's great grace. And in our infirmity, God's strength is made perfect, of course. I don't want any of you to despair. Who live that is your lot right now. There's always a way through these things that we've brought on ourselves. But consistency is key with discipline. What's a foul today can't be a touchdown tomorrow. We must not celebrate things and then call them accountable, give them whiplash, you know? The follow-through, too, is essential. The follow-through is essential. In archery, I've read about how the follow-through is vital. So I'm holding the bow, and I pull back the arrow with the string, and eventually it comes time to release. But when you do, you're supposed to keep pulling that hand back to follow through. And the thing said, lightly brush your fingers across your face, which kind of creeped me out. I'm like, oh, okay. Because generally in life, this is like not a good thing. Just in archery. It's the only time you have permission to slowly wave your fingers across your face. So foul. But here, check this out. I did that though, so you remember this one. Without follow through, they'll walk all over you. You cannot give idle threats. We don't threaten them anyway. We tell them what's going to happen if this happens, and then when it happens, we don't, no, we don't, If you're going to, go take a walk, then come back and talk. No, You say, oh, that's the problem. You did something. We said it was this. We laid this out, and I love you too much to let you get away with that behavior. Now to train you, this is what's going to happen, as I told you it was going to happen. iPhone, thank you. iPod, thank you. Car keys, thank you. Be home at 10. Okay, cool. Got the rope. They went out. 10, 12, they cruise in. And you're like, I don't want to, it's 12 minutes. And that's what they hope you say. But you say, car keys, please. What, 12 minutes, in the 12 minutes, they hit a deer, cut it, blah, blah. 12 minutes. Car keys. Thank you. Have fun walking. Right? I love you. I love you. That's why. If there's no follow through, they'll walk all over you. That one was free. Any more, you're going to have to pay for it. This should be custom built to each child too, because every child's different. Like my arrows, man, I got a bunch of different arrows, right? Like Daisy, if we look at Daisy, she will cry. Daisy. If we discipline one of her sisters, she will cry. She might hide, then she'll cry. Maybe hiding, maybe crying, but looking at her is a harsh discipline. Then Olivia is the one, she most of the time you can talk to her. You can talk to her. That stern talking it hits you pretty hard. And when she was younger, there was, she didn't have a lot of spankings, but there were some. And for the most part, when we have a serious discussion, she takes that real seriously. Then there's Clover and Linya. Linya and Clover they're both buck wild child. That's right. Like Linya would get a spanking and be like, "Is that all you got?" Or like, "That didn't even hurt." Clover, when we have to discipline Clover, it's like we call her on something. Clover will just stare you down. Like just glazed over, like just tough as nails, stone cold, killer. It's very unsettling for us. And we want to look away immediately, but that's what she wants. She's like little Mike Tyson. She's like, just perfected this very startling eye thing. I don't know what we're going to do with her. Every kid's different, you see, and so we must cater, things to the temperament of our child. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Linya and Clover is just payment back for me as a child. I just cannot help that. There's so many times in my life, my dad is in this worship experience, and he would tell you the same. My mom and him both would be like, they would say to me, "Levi, we pray one day you will have a child exactly like you." And it wasn't like, because you're so awesome, we hope you have awesome kids one day. When I had kids, I realized what they meant. It happened. And my dad, when he would spank me, which was a common occurrence, obviously not enough, but he would always say, and he would add one more. Like if the punishment required for 5 swats, he'd give me 6 or 7. He'd be like, that's for anything I didn't know about. And at first I'd be like, ah! And then I'd be like, well, yeah, that's probably fair. And gracious. But we have also the opportunity to teach them grace, even as we're training them. And sometimes maybe it will be where the punishment's about to come, but at the last second you take it away just to give them a picture of grace, And we have to be creative to teach them. Schedule, discipline, rest is our third category. Rest. Day off, time off, vacation, not working through your lunch hour. Instead, going to a park and just sitting there. There's so much to do. Yeah, you'll be better for it when you come back. Taking a nap, right? Closing your eyes for 10 minutes. Go sit in your car, put a worship song on, recenter your soul around what matters. And even just, they say, getting up from your desk for just a few moments each hour is really, really good for you. And can help you. Ecclesiastes 10 says, if the axe is dull and one doesn't sharpen the edge, he has to use more strength. But wisdom brings success. I'm just going to keep chopping the tree. You should stop and sharpen that. No, I got Paul Bunyan in this thing, bro. It'll take you longer in the end than if you would just stop, give yourself a break and get your axe sharper. So we gotta do that. Be wise enough not to work sometimes. Leave margin. Don't live your life all the way to the edge of the paper. Leave margin. Leave margin. There's an Old Testament principle that said whenever you harvest your fields, you weren't allowed to work the corners, and you weren't allowed to do a second pass. And you had to leave margin. And that was built in love and grace because then people who were poor could come through and work your land, the corners, and anything that you didn't get your first pass. And that would be it wasn't a handout. It was a way for them to work for what they would have. And that's what's so helpful in the mentality of God's plan for people is that the principle is if you don't work, you don't eat. I'm not just going to just give you money for sitting there. What you can do will allow you to do, and there's a real dignity in that, isn't there? I'm living my life to the edge of the page. I'm leaving margin, and we should live that way where we are able to be gracious and loving and help people and encourage people and have the bandwidth. If you live your life just taking every bit for yourself and how are you ever possibly going to just be able to just randomly practice an act of kindness for someone? Go randomly bring groceries to a family in your Fresh Life group who you just know they are having a hard time. Just offer to babysit their kids and give them a gift to a restaurant. Why? Just because God is awesome and I'm his kid. I mean, just living with margin is such a better way to live, isn't it? We're honoring him first, and then we're planning. Like Jen and I, we've put it as a line item in our budget, generosity, beyond just our tithes, beyond just our offerings. And there's times when we've in a month not been able to keep that third extra item, just that random extra thing there. But we love living that way. We want to have margin in our lives. Let your life breathe. Archery, they say, breathing is a huge component. I read this article from the head coach of the USA archery team, and he said that breath is a huge part of the drawing rhythm. That was literally what I read on this page. I'm like, whatever, perfect sermon illustration of all time. Breath is a part of the drawing rhythm. He said this, that you should, when you're pulling back, take a huge breath in, and then as you aim, let 50% of it out. Then hold it. So don't hold an empty lung and don't hold a full lung, but let 50% of it out. Then, as a part of, he said, the follow-through, release that additional 50%. And he went on to say that the correct method of breathing is an essential part of control. Most archers know less about breathing than any other area of the fundamentals. Therefore, the archer who understands breathing and its impact on performance has a leg up over every single other archer. Hello. Bear in mind that an anxious mind cannot exist in a relaxed body, and a quiet mind cannot exist in a tense body. So the whole part of breathing calms you down a little bit. It's so huge. He said that the majority of people only breathe superficially, meaning they only use the top part of their lungs because they never take the time to take a deep breath. And so as a result, a normal person, when they're breathing calmly, will breathe 12 to 15 times per minute. But what that does, 12 to 15 shallow breaths, is it doesn't give you the proper amount of oxygen your body needs. So he said, when you actually calm down for a second and take a full breath in, you'll only breathe 6 times per minute, but your body gets a lot more oxygen. Moral of the story, for us to shoot the arrows towards the target God wants us to, there must be breathing room inside our homes. And we must be a people who cultivate the difficult art of doing nothing sometimes. There's a rhythm to it, isn't there? You ever just hear your heartbeat? Sometimes it's really good just to listen to your heartbeat. There's a rhythm to how God built you, to how you're functioning. Slow it down. So next time you get really frazzled, just focus on getting your breathing to 6 times a minute, but make them full breaths, and you'll be better for it. For the Lusko family, this rhythm means knowing how to build our schedule around the calling on our house, which is that it's all about the weekend. We're all moving towards what God does here, and so we rest up going into the weekend. A long time ago, I made the change to where I don't take Mondays off because I don't want to feel that bad on my own time. And I prefer to work angry on Monday. So I take Fridays off. I get my sermon done set Thursday. Then on Friday's family day. Then I'm rested up going into the weekend, and I'm giving God my best version of me. But I found, though, that when we have huge initiatives, big things like Fresh Life Easter, Fresh Life Christmas, Gold Church Tour, these kind of things, that it's best for me to build buffer on the back end. because going up, it's impossible for me to rest going into it because of all the heightened spiritual warfare and anxiety I feel and the pressure and all that. So I just would fight towards those things. Then I take time on the back end. And so it's just knowing my rhythm. That's just knowing, I want to do this for a long time. I don't want to burn out and blow up like 17 years into my ministry. I want to be in this thing for the long haul, should the Lord tarry, and see what God can do by giving him my best. And so if and when you ever come into this church and there's someone else preaching that's not me, or we've even on occasion, I've preached a sermon during the week to the staff, and then we've played that back on the weekends. That's me leveraging technology and everything God's given to us to have a better soul and to have breathing room inside my own family, because I happen to care a great deal about my wife and my kids. I love you too, but I love them more, and I want to see what God can do by blessing what happens inside my home as it goes out into the world. So that's my thoughts on that. And you should find your rhythm too. If you won't lie down, he'll make you lie down too. Psalm 23:2. Oh, he leads me beside still waters, but he makes me lie down in green pastures. And that making you lie down might be some crazy medical condition that came because you weren't resting properly. Now you have to lie on your back and recuperate. So take the rest on your own. Vision, next bucket. Vision is essential. All rules, that discipline stuff, no vision, what's that going to lead to? Rebellion is what that's going to lead to. This is too much. Clutch, same kind of vibe. Proverbs 29:18. Where there's no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. Wow. Here's what I've learned about young people and all people. They don't need rules to live by only. They need a reason to live for and something to run towards. That's why our O2 experiences aren't don't. There's come on, you're the generation that's chosen to change the world. Here's what it's going to mean. Here's what you got to do to get to that. So we're not just telling them, this is what you have to do, kids, because you're young and I'm old and I know more than you do. Why? Because I said so. Least satisfying thing a parent could ever say, by the way. It's here's the vision. Here's what we're running towards. Therefore, here's what we're going to have to do to get us there. We got to cast vision. And we gotta make these values clear. So like in our house, like you don't have to guess if you're a child in our home what our values are, what matters to us. Because we got them on the wall, literally, on the wall. And you'll see if you come into our house, our Lusko family code, where we say we want to fear God. That's what matters most to us. Because Solomon said, here's what matters in life, fearing God. Here's what Peter said in life, here's what matters most, fearing God. So we're like in our home, fearing God, like honoring him with awe, worship, and adoration, fearing God. We fight for our family. We're planted in the house. We give honor where honor is due. And whatever we do it with all our heart. So these are our values. And as we correct, it's because they're not lining up with what matters to us. And here's the important thing. Yes, do that. Figure out your values and all that. But know this, that if your commitments don't line up with your values, then there's a contradiction and there's competition. Because what you're telling them matters, but you've committed to things that contradict what you say is what is the most important thing. So like for us, like church isn't optional. I don't want to go to church this week. Oh, you're going. I don't want to go to school. What would you say to that? Oh, you're going. But why do we fudge on one but not the other, right? My kids don't have to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but while they're in our home, they have to come because we are planted in the house. Therefore, what we do reflects what we say matters the most. I got to move on because I'm never going to finish. Romance is the next bucket. It's vital that you date your mate. It's vital that you pursue the one that you've already caught. Why? Proverbs 5:18. Let your fountain be blessed. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. A lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Pursue. Rejoice. Relationship. Here's a guideline. 2 date nights a month, minimum. Husband and wife, 2 date nights per month, minimum. In a perfect world, it's every week, but this is reality. Let's say 2 date nights per month. Does it mean filet mignon every time, right? There's a time and a place for just walking around a park playing Frisbee. 2 date nights a month is what we're shooting for. Oh, you got a verse for that? Yeah, here we are. Exodus 20. You shall not commit adultery. And the best way to not have sex with someone you're not married to is to have sex with someone you're married to. In Jesus' name. And while we're on that subject, let's say our benchmark for sex in the marriage is 2 times per week. That we are having regular intimacy with our spouses twice a week. Man, you're like, is that all? No, you could do it twice a day. You need some Gatorade probably, but whatever. But twice a week, that's our goal. That's our goal, to build up and stoke the fires of our. I didn't even get an amen from anybody on that one. I'm like telling you have sex I'm telling you, your pastor said you got to have sex. So if you're not excited, you got problems. That's it. Keep on preaching it. Roles. Here we go. Roles. Nah, let's ditch it. Forget about that. Here's where I want to end with this. We're going to land this plane. Worship team's come on up here. Maybe I'll tweet the last one. I already told you the name. Maybe I'll tell you what it's about later. Maybe not. It'll drive you crazy till your deathbed, which is where I'm going. The only way to set the pace for your home is to set the pace for yourself. Set the pace for yourself. Joshua gave that great bomb that we let guide our first week, which was, as for my house, we'll serve the Lord. Right? Nope. As for me and my house. We don't tell our families, do as I say, not as I do, by not living out the things that we're telling them should matter for them. Remember, the goal is to finish well, right? The goal is to finish well. And to do that, you got to pace yourself, because this is a long race we're running. Hebrews 12 says what? We are to run this race with endurance, right? Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight that entangles and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. You got to run this race with endurance. I've made the mistake at the Huckleberry 100 last year of riding out too strong, too soon, letting better riders than me dictate for me how I was going to ride, getting swept up in how fast they were going. And so, going out 23, 24 miles an hour where I had only trained at 20, and where I bonked so hard that I was on the side of the highway looking up, watching the clouds spin around, hating my life and huckleberries and everything in between. And ending, hobbling in 15, humbled 16 miles an hour, 14 miles an hour, last couple of a dozen miles where I went out too fast. And I feel like in our youth, it's really easy to do that. We're young now. It's the time I got to make deals and be the big man. And, I got to show that I'm willing to do whatever to exceed and succeed. And you know what? If you start out too strong, you're going to regret it later on. And if you want to finish well, you have to decide what kind of a finish you want, and then start out and go the whole thing with that in mind. When I rode in the Huckleberry 100 this year, I visualized the ending I wanted, which was me coming under the banner feeling good and feeling like a human being and having something left. So I didn't at the beginning, when I felt tempted to and felt like swept up in it all and people were zipping past me, just go, well, let's just shove all my coal into the fire because I feel like it right now. Because if I did that, then once again, I'd come in at the end with nothing left to give. So instead, I held coal back. I reined my legs in so that I could end strong. And that's what happened, and it felt so good to end at 24 because I was willing to go out at 18 and 19, you see? And I feel like in our lives, if we would just go to the end, think about your deathbed. What kind of a deathbed do you want? You want your kids there, right? Caring about. You want your loving wife at your side. You want a deathbed. You want a funeral where you're celebrated as a man who loved God and feared God, and we want to be like him. So go to the end at the beginning and set the pace accordingly. Live a life that will get you to the end that you want to have. And by God's grace, we will finish strong. And the only way we're going to get there is if we will look up.
Thanks for watching this teaching from Pastor Levi Lusko in our Arrows series. We hope it helps you to live towards the target. If while listening to this teaching, you realized you'd like to give your life to Jesus, then go to FreshLifeChurch.com and click the words "Know God" to register your decision. It will be our honor to send you a Bible free of charge and some resources that you'll need to help kickstart your relationship with God. If God used this message to impact your life in a positive way, then at FreshLifeChurch.com, you can click the words "Share Your Story" and share that with us. And it just encourages us so much to be able to hear how God is using this ministry to impact people's lives. And if you'd like to partner with us financially in seeing messages like this one go out, then we have a secure giving link at FreshLifeChurch.com where you can make a one-time gift of whatever God lays on your heart or set up a recurring payment to help us see those stranded in sin find life and liberty in Jesus Christ. Well, thanks so again for watching.